Hello everyone, welcome to the EmpowHer Journey. Hi David, hi Anna.
Hi guys.
Hi guys.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be with you today. We're super excited for this new episode of the EmpowHer Journey, the community to support your self-growth and live by your own rules. And the month is very special, and the theme this month is going to be how you self-sabotage, tips to create balance. And we have the honor of having David Wilkinson today with us.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's so great to have you again. Thank you so much for coming. And I'll just say a word of introduction about yourself before you go ahead and give more information. So David Wilkinson, you're a performance and mindset coach working with individuals, business leaders, and corporations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's correct in a nutshell. Easy.
Yeah, perfect. Straight to the point. So, but we'd like to know more, and I'm sure the audience out there would want to know more about your journey. What is your empowerment journey? Tell us about yourself.
Okay, so I suppose my journey, the best place to start is when I got into the fitness industry. That's where it all started. So after going to college to study like sports science, I started to become interested in gym instructing and just helping people in that type of industry first, getting in shape and be healthier. And then that evolved the journey towards becoming a personal trainer, and then started running like outdoor fitness camps. So we're about 2009, 2010. So I started running outdoor fitness camps and then grew that, and then moved into having a gym. Opened up a personal training gym with which is my wife now, but my partner at the time. So that was an interesting dynamic. Maybe we'll get to that in the balance section. Also, like kind of going through that journey, ran the gym together till about 2016. The whole purpose of that was we used to work a lot on kind of a holistic approach, like mindset, de-stressing, nutrition, training. So it kind of had this overall element to it. But as I started to get further in that journey, I think this is what started to make that switch for me. Was I kind of was starting to recognize when I was a lot of training like that, you're kind of instructing and teaching people like, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that. And I think that's very limited. Now, knowing what I know now as a coach now, it's almost a little bit like teachery format and a little bit disempowering, and doesn't take the ownership and responsibility to the client. So I was kind of missing that little bit that I wanted. But then also I was going through my own challenges of my own growth as a person, coming towards my late 20s, early 30s, feeling lost in myself, had a lot of things that I needed to work on. And that was what kind of opened the door for me to be my own journey into taking on having therapy, having coaching, transitioning into another career, training as a coach, coming out of the fitness industry, and then starting up my business now, which has been a couple of years old, doing performance and mindset and working with business owners to improve their performance and what they do. So that's the shortened version, but that's kind of like the timeline, if you like.
That's brilliant. I really love that. And I think it makes a lot of sense as well with how coaching started, sort of in sports, and a lot of people now, when you say I'm a coach, okay, what kind of sport, right? Yeah. So it's still like sort of the first job as a coach started like that, didn't it?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I love the connection with this.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. And I would have said yes, I was a coach then, but then yes, in a sense, but not in the way that we understand it now. And the work that we do, as a collective, coaching has a different meaning to us. That sense of the person being empowered and taking responsibility. And I used to feel that a lot. And this is not a judgment of the clients that I worked with when I was a personal trainer, because some of them did amazing, got great results. But sometimes you felt there was a lack of ownership, responsibility, and I would take that on for them. So then I would be the one that would be getting frustrated with their lack of them doing what they said they would do. And this just caused this kind of like a friction between it. And I was like, there's got to be something better out there. There's got to be a better way. So yeah, that's kind of transition coming out of that industry gaining a new perspective and doing what I do now. But actually, even in the coaching that I do now, you know, I still empower my clients, even though they're business owners or business leaders, to, you know, consider having a healthy lifestyle and the importance of that actually for the overall benefits of our life. So all of that skill and knowledge that I've got still kind of plays into this, but it's more of the what we do now. If that makes sense, guys.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. We can call that resistances or self-sabotage. Yeah, we can see it in every areas of our life, not in sport only. So can you tell us more about why we are sometimes holding back ourselves?
Okay, like why we hold back?
Yeah, what's going on when we got into that kind of resistances, even when we really want the goal?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it has to do, so a lot of the work that I do, we might call it kind of like limiting beliefs. I suppose that's a bit of a general term. But kind of, I would say, like, it's our like subconscious narratives in our context. And what these are is, if we think of like, there's the mind as like almost a space, and then that space becomes filled. So that space becomes filled. Let's say it was a room, for example, in a general context. The room is, we put the furniture in, so that we have an empty room, an empty mind, an empty space. And as we develop through our early part of our life, we start putting things in there. So like obviously the pictures and the seats, the bench, everything, right? And then that's what we know as like our content. So that's like our stories that we have that we're aware of. You know, like I'm too fat, I'm stupid, I'm not smart enough, I'm too young, I'm too old. These general like conversations that we're aware of. Now, what happens is, I think a lot of people try to change that part there. And that's not the full picture, because it's only like swapping out one chair for another chair, but the room is still the same.
Yeah.
So the way I look at it is, what I want to work on is the context, the thing that builds the walls, the floor, the ceiling. The mind is this shape and this form, and we want to expand that out and change that. Now, if we only change what's in the room, we still have the same mind. We want to change the context, which is the subconscious narrative that the person sees themselves and their life through. And if they see themselves and their life through that, it doesn't matter how much you change their habits and behaviors, they still see themselves that way. So ultimately, a big one for people, to give the audience a little bit of a is I'm not enough. That's a very common one that you guys as coaches will have seen, like, I'm not enough. So it really doesn't matter how much money somebody makes, how much of good shape they get, how positive their relationships are. If they see their life through that lens of context, I am not enough, they will always sabotage towards that, because it's their story, it's their belief. But a lot of people don't know that that's what's driving them. So we want to get towards that and change that root cause. And I think that's why people's mindset is such an important part of that. It's like, it doesn't matter how many behaviors you change or how much strategy you have. If you don't get the root cause and get to that and let them be aware of that, they're always going to default to that lowest mechanism or lowest behavior. Yeah.
Excellent. And I love how we can connect that back to the example of you were giving of fitness, you know. So sometimes people try to fix something from the wrong end goal, sort of thing. Like, I feel like what I need to change is really get it fitter or getting slimmer, and I get there and I actually don't feel better. Like, the problem is still there. And I think the way you described it is really great. And would you say that with some people, though, it can be like sort of a way in? So they would start working on themselves and looking at their lifestyle, and then realize, okay, all right, maybe there's more.
Yeah, 100%. We need the access point to the subconscious. The access point is the language the person uses in conversation. So the wording that they use is the access point to get to the subconscious context. Until we have that, and then they engage in a conversation, for example, somebody like a coach like us, who can be sitting outside and see those words, then that's how we get to it. So all you have is, which is fine, you have an individual who feels they have a problem. I'm not slim enough. I'm not successful enough. I'm not successful in relationships. I don't have enough money. No, my clients don't. I don't have enough clients, whatever. that's fine. That's what they're seeing as the problem. And we're not saying that it isn't a problem, but what we're saying is that's not the real root cause. And we need to know what that is so we can start going inward from that point, not just trying to go, oh, you don't have enough clients. Okay, let's get you more clients, or you don't feel slim enough. Let's start losing weight. That might seem like it is, but actually it doesn't matter how much weight you lost, how much money you had, how successful. If you don't think you're enough, nothing externally can make you feel more.
True.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I love that you mentioned that about the external world, because it's very easy as well for people to consider that and to blame on, on others, on society, on circumstances, on situation, and sort of getting stuck there, not finding a way out. Like, okay, there's nothing I can do, and it's very, very empowering, actually, isn't it, to access more awareness, more self-awareness on understanding actually what is the room I'm in, like you were saying.
Yeah, what is the room? Yeah, and I liked what you said there. Kind of like we do project that outwards, and we're not saying that when somebody's awareness is limited that way that they're doing anything wrong. They're only doing what they know, but it is very limited, because what that means is I'm a victim of circumstance.
Yeah.
That's just not true. We're not victims of circumstance. And if we always play that game, we're always going to be not responsible for ourselves, which means we're disempowered to make a decision and choose the access that we want to take. The minute we stop going, somebody can be causing frustration in our life, but we also have a choice there. We also have space to be able to go, well, I respect myself enough to not accept this from this person.
Yeah.
It still always comes back on the inside, that self-responsibility. So a lot of the work, like with clients, is like not looking at the circumstances of your life, which are what they are. It's exactly looking at the whole as like, what is the perspective you have of yourself and that situation that is creating the experience you're having? And that's that's where the real power for a person can be. It's like, wow, I can do something about this. And nothing's more powerful than that for somebody.
Yeah, absolutely. And for a lot of people as well, in my experience, when they come and they want to talk about, going back to the example of, okay, I'm not making enough money for my business, for example, they also sort of seek the answers outside of them. So they would maybe initially think that a coach is going to be the person that's going to say, this is what you need to be doing, and a bit of a consultant, a bit of a trainer or a mentor. And I found very empowering as well to offer a different perspective and say, what if the answers were inside of you, and what if I could help you to access them, actually?
Yeah, absolutely. Amazing, right? And it just gives people the thought that there's something else, like if the client might not be making enough money, like they might be, financially not able to cover their bills or have the lifestyle they want. That's fine. But what is stopping you going out making more money? Now, like, obviously, if you were a service-based business, I think it's a little bit kind of what you do, Clemence. I'm sorry, I don't know. I think you do something similar as well, right? In terms of work with people with like service-based businesses. Well, service-based businesses are about getting business from clients and customers. Now, so the essence of like you're putting yourself out there to win business or get clients. Okay, so you don't have enough money because you're not doing enough of that. You're probably not doing enough of that because you don't feel good about representing yourself. So it still comes, like you were saying, Clemence, comes back within you. It's always full circle, and I've worked with many people in that space where it's like you're not willing to put yourself out because you don't feel you're good enough, or that you don't matter, or what you have to say is not important. So you're just going to stay hidden. You're going to stay inside, and then you're going to blame, oh, there's not enough business out there, or I don't know the answer, I don't know how to market, I don't have all this. Well, that's the end. All starts.
What's really important as well is to not just find one solution, but find the solution that really suits the person, suits you. And when you are working on yourself, that's what you're looking for, not just one solution to get more money, to get more clients, but finding the right solution for you that you feel good about it, good about your life and what you really want.
And that brings it round to that fact of like why I wanted to do this type of coaching, because it was the person then makes their decision for what solution's best for them, right? So then they own that. You know, like we can all say, you know, this is probably the best way to do it, or that's the best way to do it. But actually, we probably don't want to give them that. We want them to go, out of all of these ideas and thoughts, this is what I'm going to do. And this is the best way. And then they own that, right? And then that's theirs. And then they probably get better results because of it. So I think it's so important to give them that awareness, but that empowerment. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't do very much kind of like, this is what you need to do. It's all about adjusting perspective and creating awareness. And then the client then goes, this is what I'm going to do about that. This is the action that I'm going to take.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And as Anna was saying, I really believe that that's the way then you can really be 100% focused on the person, rather than unconsciously as well, sort of putting your agenda out there. You know, maybe the way I've done it should be the way they do it. Maybe not. You know, there isn't one solution, one way of doing it.
Nice.
So yeah, we talked about mindsets, about those limiting beliefs that we all have unconsciously. It's not something we do in purpose, like, oh, let's self-sabotage today.
Sabotage.
Yeah.
And I love that you said that your coaching philosophy starts with what happens between your ears. So the importance of that mindset. So what can we do then to change those limiting beliefs, to have an amazing, positive growth mindset? How do we change that?
Okay, so kind of going back to what I was saying before, we need to access the root cause. So we need to access the root context. So this would be anything from the biggest ones that I uncover is I'm not enough, people leave me, I don't matter, I'm stupid, like these I am, the perception of self, right? These are the big ones, right? So they're the deep ones. Now we want to get to that first. So that can take time, because somebody does, like you might have been living 2 decades, 3 decades, 4 decades, 5 decades with that, but almost that lens on of life. So once we access that, we can then coach through the truth of that. So actually what will happen is you created that probably when you were 4, 5, 6, 7 years old, somewhere down the line, okay? Not necessarily your own, could have been inherited from what you've observed by other people, could have been something you created, maybe it could have been anything from extreme abuse and trauma to anything where maybe you just weren't held when you needed to. It could be anything. I'm not saying that everything stems back to childhood, but most things will go there, and anything else is just a representation of that as you go through. So once you get to the root cause and the root context, we can then make you aware of that. Because before you're aware, you don't have choice. You don't have choice. And what we want to do is then go, is this real? Like, is this part of my DNA? Or was it something that I kind of made up because I was left out in the playground? A hurtful experience, but you don't know if people didn't like you. You don't know that for a fact. And we create these, we want to be right. So that ego then is then created, which sits on top of these, then formulates, I need to be right. I need to be correct about the way I see myself. Even if it's hurtful, I still have to be right. So we want to then start breaking that down. So a lot of the work, we start to pull that apart. Then what we need to do is understand the effects that has created in our life. What effects has that created for us? That could be anything like, you know, I've got an unhealthy habit with eating or alcohol, or unhealthy attitudes in relationships. I've got, you know, short temper, I've got a short fuse, I self-sabotage in all sorts of areas. The effects will be something, because they're what it's stemming from. And then the perspective of self. So there's 3 areas: root cause, the effects, and the perspective that drives all of that, how I see myself. We go to the root cause, we find out what it is, then we want to create new balance of effects. So what have you been doing and what could we do differently? So that could be, well, I could change the way that I eat and the way I think about it because my root cause is not a truth. I could take more of a vitality approach. I can stop doing things because I don't want something to happen. A lot of people do things because they're fearful or scared or don't feel okay. We want to be like, well, they're not real truths, and we want to come from an abundance place. So we balance out the effects, and then we create a new perspective. And until you have all of those lined up, you'll just keep running through the same thing. And unfortunately, the slippery part is, it is easy to go back into those root causes. It's easy to go back because you've lived in it for so long.
Yeah.
You know, if we were, you know, one of mine is like, I don't feel enough. So if there was you know, an acting part available for a guy to play someone who doesn't feel enough, I could play that part really well. You know what I mean? Even though I don't always live from that now, but I could do. And what happens is when we find ourselves under periods of stress or fatigue or where situations in life are difficult, it's easy to slip back towards them. So at least we have that awareness that we can pull ourselves out of that context again and again and keep building the new perspective. But the way I see it is root cause, balance the effects, and then create a new perspective that drives the way you want to see yourself going forward.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, go on.
It's really about creating the new powerful stories that you want to stay in. Yeah, I really love that. Like, what I'm telling myself, it's not good for me, and it doesn't make me good in my life and everything else. So what stories can I tell myself and stay in so I can feel better and create the great results I want in my life? I really love that.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, because people, and we understand why they think it's a personality. So they'll say something like, "Oh, I'm just clumsy," and they'll adopt that. Oh, it's who I am. It's a personality. No, it isn't. What happened was at some point you maybe knocked something over, dropped something, and the parents said, "Oh, you're a little bit clumsy, you." And before you know it, oh, that's who I am, because you have no perception of self until a certain age. You just exist with the sensing self, engaging in the world with senses and things like that. Then you create this perception and all these what we call personality. Oh, I'm this, I'm not this, I'm not that, and none of them are real. And we can choose, or do I want to change the narrative of that story? Some of them might be really helpful, empowering. Some of them might be quite negative, and we can almost change the script. Yeah. Now that's what takes work, and that's kind of having to become aware, then practice that new way of living or new way that you see yourself. And that takes time, right? You guys know that, and it's see that, and that's what we kind of have to continue to do. And the best way I see that happening is you must engage with life. So it's almost like we could be, you know, live in the woods somewhere, and we could meditate and have cold baths and, you know, write in our journal, think that's, you know, I'm amazing, you know, I'm free, I'm calm, I'm centered, but you're not living life. We want to be able to create the perspectives and then put you into life, new experiences, try new friendships, new relationships, build new businesses, challenge yourself, and take these new perspectives into the world so you can then be like, yeah, no, that's right, it does work, it is me, and it reinforces that. So you've got to have that element of life as well, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, that's how the growth can then happen. And I love how you described actually this. We can really see how, and that's definitely been my experience as well, working with people. Like, the work happens like between sessions too, doesn't it? Like they come back, they try things, maybe challenging those limiting beliefs, and what if my behavior this time was different? And then they come back to the session, and we talk about the discoveries, and so it's a work in progress. And I think it's really important, because for a lot of people that have had no experience of coaching, it's maybe hard to imagine what it's like. But exactly as you say, I think it's really by going back to very deep inside, accessing things between our ears, and then gradually yourself, your behaviors, your room, the perspective, the furniture, everything else can also change. And that is going to take time. And that's important as well, because we want to be gentle. Something too much of a shock could actually be too much, right? So it's the time aspect, I think, is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, and you know, we want to bring that compassion to that person and go at their pace and have, like, you know, like a lot of people do feel like lonely and isolated, not loved and not cared for. And that's even people in good relationships, because they don't feel it themselves. So we want to bring that level of compassion to that individual and kind of hold them and hold that space as they go through that journey, because it has a lot of resistance. Because that ego and that whole part of you is fighting against it, which is why we kind of flick between, I feel super empowered, I'm doing things, to like, no, I'm still rubbish and life isn't good. And you have that fight, you know. You know, I maybe for the audience, I'll share a story of a client, and this might help, like how that all kind of unpacks that. So working with a client, and this client had a really good business, like down London, like good business. You know, kind of luxury flooring business, and there was going to be kind of like a takeover and things like that. And what was happening is this business owner wasn't really making decisions. So what was happening is they were avoiding making decisions in the business, which will ultimately cause things to be delayed. Clients were getting unhappy, you know, just kind of that disruption. And you think, you know, well, just make a decision. But I'm going to explain why that wasn't as easy as just make a decision, you know, because why it's not easy. So what we kind of went kind of all the way back, and I was like, so what is your biggest fear and concern? Well, my biggest fear is, you know, losing my home and losing my business and getting it wrong. And I was like, very interesting word, getting it wrong, right? That's a very powerful, interesting insight. Okay, wrong. What does that mean? What does that look like? So we broke that down, keep going back through the time. I knew from some of our previous work that when she was 4 years old, this individual had to go and live with her grandparents. Okay, so this is an interesting part, right? So at 4 years old, going to live with your grandparents, no longer living with your parents, and put into a dynamic where there was a lot more people around, meant that they were no longer kind of cared for to the level of being support and help, because not because the grandparents didn't love them, but because how busy the home life is, a lot of other kids running around, a lot of other people to take care of. Okay, so by virtue of that, this individual sat quietly and was believed like, I'm not really as important as other people. It's not like I'm not important, but I'm just a little bit less important than the older kids, for example. Now, what they also observed was what happens if you did wrong. Okay, if I do wrong, I've seen family members get in trouble. Okay, they were getting wrong and told off by my grandparents. It had serious consequences, and she used the word serious consequences. Okay, this is very interesting. So I asked, did you ever get wrong? No, I always made sure that I did the right thing, because if I got wrong, I could have lost my home, I could have been sent away, I could have been done something else. So their fear of getting something wrong could have been detrimental to their life. Now we can hold love and compassion for a young child that would feel that child is surviving. Yeah, it's surviving. So the thought of getting something wrong is collapsed with their deepest survival mechanism of, I'm not safe. Okay, now if they look through their life of, I don't want to make mistakes and get things wrong, there's no difference between that 4, 5, 6-year-old there to the person that's in their late 40s, 50s here, still trying to not get it wrong, because wrong has consequences. But by virtue of that, you're not making decisions. But until they understand the attachment all the way through, they can't almost kind of release themselves from that prison, that root cause that they're in. And I think that shows how powerful these root causes and beliefs actually are for us.
What's amazing as well, like, is by doing this work, the deep work onto the root causes, then not only does it have an impact on this particular issue that usually, as we said, people would come to a coach for, but it impacts everything, you know, accessing, being free of a groove like this one is just so liberating in all areas of your life. And you uncover actually ways you were tied to this belief you weren't even aware of, and you're accessing something else in the relationships, in your lifestyle, in your level of well-being. It's incredible.
everything, absolutely everything, like you said.
Yeah.
With that, we become more and more limitless, and that's pretty amazing, definitely. Since the beginning of this talk, you talked twice about balance, the balance of effect, and with your partner, now your wife. Can you tell us more about balance? What does this concept mean for you?
So for me, when I was in the fitness industry and didn't really kind of have that concept in place, everything became about work for me, and everything became about success and achievement. Okay. Now, understanding myself now, I'd be like, well, that's because I didn't think I was enough. So by virtue, I'm overcompensating. But you don't know that, you don't know what you don't know, right? You're just like, yeah, but I want to build this business and make more money, and I want to have us to have a great life. So this was kind of my thought. And it was always, I always use this when we get here, then we can do this. So I'll be like, when we've achieved this and when I've got this, then we can get married. Then we can have this home. Then we can have all those things. And what that was doing was creating kind of this thought of like, well, my personal life is on hold until I've achieved this. Now, that there was just starting to create my dynamic of working 5 days a week, working 6 days a week, never switching off, starting early in the morning, finishing late on at night. And just, I would say, when you look at it, it's almost a sense of neglect. Neglect for my partner, neglect for the relationship, and neglect for myself. And what that started to do was create separation. And eventually that split us up. Now, it wasn't the only reason that separated us, but we did split up for a period of time, right in the middle of actually running the business as well, which wasn't easy. Yeah. So what happened was, when we got back together, there was an honest discussion about us both working on ourselves. And part of mine was being able to balance myself, my emotions. I'd easily go to anger a lot quicker than I would other emotions. I didn't feel I could be very vulnerable. I was always afraid like someone would leave. So I didn't have that vulnerability. So it was easy to have this kind of front on. So that was creating that. My partner also needed to do things in her own world. So she worked on herself. And then that kind of brought us together into actually having a relationship, because before that, we didn't have a relationship. We had a relationship with our survival behaviors, not together. So that's what got us in. By doing that work and then understanding the importance of relationship, I started to create more balance in other parts of life. So having priorities at home, making a relationship a priority, creating that, what we might say, work-life balance. But I'd say there, you're kind of balancing out my personal emotions, being able to be more balanced with my emotions, being able to balance work and life, making life a priority over work, and understanding like, I don't have to have a when goal. It can be, I can do now. Yeah. So all of this was kind of this huge learning curve. And I'm not putting that down a couple of months. That's been years of constantly going and developing that. And I'm not looking for the end point. I'm just looking for better, right? Improvement. So that was a big thing, balance for me in that area. But, and sorry, the other side, I'll give another side, is being very obsessed with my body, very physical, like obsessed with it to the point, like obsessed with eating, obsessed with training. I was so extreme out of balance, like almost like physical's everything. And then mental, emotional, spiritual are just kind of not considered. But well, I look good, so everything else. And it's just, that was totally out of balance as well. So I've kind of rebalanced that of more of a health and a vitality approach. That also includes my mental and emotional and spiritual development as well, and not just one area of life. So bringing that kind of that in.
That's amazing. Yeah, it's really great. I really believe in what you said in the process of self-sabotage. Usually there's this dimension of an extreme, and how bringing more balance and working on that balance really enables to overcome, to transcend these processes, and to get free of those root causes. So thank you for sharing your very personal journey there. That's really appreciated.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But like also my ability to share my personal journey allows me to be okay with vulnerability, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I think that's an important thing. And, you know, I do a lot of work with men. That's a big primary focus. It's not just men, but I do work primarily with men. And the ability to be okay with our vulnerabilities is very important. Now, it's just sensing the part that that's good for my growth, because being able to be vulnerable and talk about my story in an open way is very important, but also to help other people know that it's okay for them too. And they'll find their own space with that. And I think as a dynamic working with guys, it's like that could be a really powerful breakthrough point if we can be okay with our emotions and become more vulnerable and become more honest and open. Does that start dropping this kind of mask of masculinity? It's not against us being masculine, being male, but like, can we have another dimension to ourselves? And I think so. You know, like, I think that would be great for our growth as a gender.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, it can sound possibly for some people a bit of a paradox. You know, accessing vulnerability is actually the way to access more growth. Well, yeah, it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, 100%. Because you're no longer in relationship with your survival mechanisms, are you? So you're not like, I've got to protect myself because I'm not okay, I'm not safe, and if I open up, then people will see me for who I really am, and I'm not enough as I am, and then people are going to think I'm not. But actually, that's all a lie. So all that hiding is only keeping you away from actually expanding yourself. Yeah. And like you said, it's amazing, right? So that's I mean, that is the way to access growth, right? Is honesty. Yeah. And vulnerability.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and I think that's really what we mean as well, with wanting it all, having it all. As you said, this idea of balance is very connected to that. So it's not about necessarily drinking champagne on the yacht every day. That's not what we mean by having it all, but actually being able to balance those extremes so that you have great relationships, you have a very fulfilling work and enough success and enough money and abundance in all those spheres. And the balance is going to bring that to you, because as you say, if you're extremely obsessed in one direction, for a lot of people it's work, isn't it? The example of fitness was great too. You're only one person, so you need all of it to function to your highest potential. Yeah,
absolutely, couldn't agree more. 100%.
Brilliant. So to finish, we have our classic last question about the tips to your younger self. So if you go back in time, what would you tell your younger self?
Hard question.
Well, I think one of the ones, like thinking of my younger self and kind of just looking back, I'd say like everything's going to be okay. You know, everything's going to be okay. I think there's like, I grew up with a big sense of like, I'm not okay, and I'm not safe, and life was, I wouldn't say life was like, as a younger child was hell, you know. It wasn't. I didn't have a good childhood, but I still had challenges and traumatic experiences that, like, I didn't think like everything was going to be okay and that I was going to be okay as a person. And I think that would be a really big one, but not just in like, I'm okay, but like the sense that trust that life has you. Like, I don't have to do this on my own. I don't have to fight for everything. I don't have to prove everything. Life has me, like a bit of a safety net. And everything's going to be okay, and it's going to work out the way it's going to work out. And this is like kind of like, as I start to get a little older, like relinquishing that like need to kind of like, I've got to do everything and I've got to control everything. I can just be like, oh, life's got me. And even if something's happening that I don't think's great right now, it has a reason to be there. So for me, that would be one of the biggest things for me.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
it supports you.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but it feels like
yeah. I took a deep breath when you were talking.
you know, you know, we're not talking about just kind of like sitting in the house and doing nothing and knowing everything, but like, you know, following, you know, our growth and our passions and working on ourselves and putting good things out into the world. But like, at the end of the day, like, something else is out there. I don't have to do it like myself, and I am okay. You know, like I think that was a really important thing for me. I don't have to protect and fight against everything. I don't have to win everything. I don't have to overcome everything. It's just all in my head. It's like life has a safety net. It's there. Just be with it.
Yeah.
Let it take us.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's beautiful how it also provides an amazing alternative to a lot of the fears that we experience and the threats, and the default mode that we're stuck in without realizing is just completely the opposite of the trust. So it's really creating a very powerful perspective, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think so. Yeah. So yeah. Now I really like that question because I did read it before, and it kind of really made me think, like, what would I say? And that was what come to my mind straight away. I was like, no, that's it. You don't have to come up with anything else. And, you know, like, I thought that was it for me, especially where I am in my life now.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Cool.
What would you guys say?
We say that in every episode.
Do you get asked that all the time? Everybody say yours, or do you have to do your own?
Yes. So because what we do is that we record an episode, just the two of us. So we go through sort of similar questions and share about what we would tell our younger selves. And mine was similar to yours, actually, saying I would go back in time and tell myself, because that's a particular time in my life, I felt a lot of impatience and frustration that things were not going quickly enough, and I wanted to be very early on. I remember from the age of like 16, like, why is it moving faster? So I would really tell myself that, you know, everything come to the right time, and taking time and trusting the process and the time and the journey, to get rid of that sort of a heavy thing on my shoulders. So it's got a little bit of a different flavor, but a similar idea.
Yeah. And for me right now, I'm really integrating surrender and follow joy, and that's pretty amazing as well.
Yeah, I love it. Great. kind of like all similar, but like with our own kind of like spin on them, aren't they? Kind of like, I love that. It's great, right?
Yeah. Bringing our own flavor. And I really believe, as you said, like even as coaches, we're still on the journey. We're still finding more balance, and we're still growing. And it's not like I don't believe that the journey is ever over, and that's the way it's beautiful. So we keep on working on ourselves. We have to, as a coach, but we want to as well, because we know there's more for us to access and to discover. So
100%. I mean, even on that notion, you know, like one of my contexts, like, was like, people will leave me. I only uncovered that maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. So that's a process of all the work that was done before. I'm still going through that and understanding the relevance of that, and I know where it stems from and from what that came from, but I'm still working through that part and processing actually what happened in my history in that place, to be like, to create a new perspective of like, I'm free and I don't need to hold on to anyone, you know. So that's, as a coach, I'm still like on that, you know, like you're always kind of revealing these new perspectives and parts. And I think that happens because we grow through life and we have new experiences, and that can reveal something maybe else within us. So, you know, I always say, and I'm sure you guys are the same, like, I'm not complete. I'm not sitting at the top of the mountain. I'm on my journey, and I'm just kind of still doing me. And the more I do me, the better I can be for others. And I think that's kind of, you know, duality with that.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it resonates with me too. It would be boring, right, if we would get to the top of the mountain and then, is that
yeah. I'm alone.
Exactly. I heard a great quote, right? And it was don't become perfect because you'll have nobody else to relate to. Okay. So, yeah, we don't want to be finished, right? We want to still be going through that, and that's what makes life unique, even though those things are sometimes challenging for us. But that's where growth goes, isn't it? Where the things are a little bit more challenging. So, we're not done. That's a good thing.
We're not done. Yay! Actually. Yeah. Well, it's carry on, and stay tuned by subscribing to our channel. Follow us on our podcasts, all the podcast channel and on the YouTube channel. And don't hesitate to send us an email as well if you want to give us some feedback, if there are some themes that you'd like for us to talk about. The email is theempowherjourney@gmail.com. You have all connections and links to reach David in the description. So don't hesitate to click there. Visit his website, social media links. And we want to thank you again, David, for coming.
Yeah, thank you for your insights.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're welcome, guys. Thank you very much for having me on. It's been I've loved it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So see you soon, guys, for a new episode.
See you.
Bye.